First of all, there's an organization called Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts that's in most places in the United States. So you might want to call up Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts, and you might say, is there anything that I can do for anybody in this area? There might be a painter in New Bedford getting evicted. Whatever it is, you connect with the Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts. You do one or two things for them, and now you've got on your resume, you've done something for Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts, and what that shows the prospective employer is you've got an interest in helping artists, helping people involved with the arts and entertainment world. More than any, I used to tell people, because I stumbled, sort of stumbled into the entertainment world. Very quickly, my first clients came to me when I was in law school. It was John Belushi and Gilda Radner, who had just been brought from Chicago and given a contract to appear at Saturday Night Live. And my roommate at law school had been the co-captain of the football team with Belushi. He and Gilda came by and they had these contracts, and we sat and I looked at him and tried to mark him up as best I could. I ended up, and I was sort of an alternative type hippie student in those days, but I ended up deciding I was going to go undercover to Wall Street and just see what it was like, because I didn't really think I was going to have a career in the law. Took a job on Wall Street in a small litigation firm, loved the work, and one of our clients was CBS Records. I had a case against the preeminent entertainment litigator at the time, who was representing a singer called Tanya Tucker. I won the case on summary judgment. He called me aside and said, "Kid, if I can have somebody to write with, I'll make you a partner right now." I said, "I'm 2 years out of this." So I joined this firm, and I spent 2 years representing Pink Floyd, Mick Jagger, Bruce Springsteen, Bootsy Collins, Funk Parliament, Funkadelic. I did Christopher Reeve when he was the first Superman. It was like the highest level, great stuff, all fortuitous. But in my heart and soul, I didn't want to be a city guy, so I left. I wanted to move somewhere. I wanted to do some more travel. I went traveling in South America for over a year. I ended up finding Northampton, Mass, because I had always loved Western Mass. And I plunked down and became, a very successful, competent general practitioner, built up a law firm of 5 or 6 or 7 people, including 2 current judges who were my partners at the time. And 7 or so years later, Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman, who had just published their Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic book, self-published it, came to see me. We heard you used to be an entertainment lawyer in New York. We want to make some deals for the Turtles. Can you help us? So that kind of got me into the world stage, and all of a sudden I'm flying all over the world. I'm doing all these deals, and I'm no longer in the music business now. I'm in the children's television, film, etc. And I ended up thinking, it's crazy to think that I can do this from Northampton, Mass, but I think I'm pretty good. I get along with everybody. I have a lot of contacts. I'm going to let it be known that I'll take on any other clients. This was pre-email, faxes. But no FedEx that I can remember. It was like, we had to go, we wanted to send something to New York. We'd go down to my secretary would take it down to the bus and give it to the bus driver with $10, and somebody would wait on the other end when it happened. And so that kind of fortuitously got me into this world, and that was 20 years ago or more. And I've ended up having a terrific career. There are all sorts of other organizations that you can join. There's an entity called Postmortem, which meets once a month. And it's a group of young video game development people that meet in Waltham once a month and have talks. Join, show up, say, "Hey, I'm a law student. Anybody need any help? Let me come in and organize your contracts, or write, do some filing, or if you have any problems, I'll help it out." You're not practicing law, I'll make it clear. But now you've got something like that on your resume. There's a comic book convention in New York. There's the Toy Fair in New York. I'm mentioning all these things because they don't charge any admission. So you go down for a day, and you walk around the floor of the Toy Fair, and you go and visit, and you see what's happening. Now you put on your resume when you're applying for a job that you were Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts. You attend Postmortem video game thing. you've attended the toy fair, you've attended the, all of a sudden it's like, gee, this person has demonstrated an interest in the business of entertainment. I hired 2 people from Suffolk. One turned out to be a great, they both turned out to be great hires, but one stayed with me for about 3 or 4 years, and his wife wanted to move to a city, and he ended up becoming the head of Microsoft Gaming, and he's now running a new office in Boston for Microsoft because they wanted to move back from Seattle. But I noticed on his resume that he had been part of an informal group that did computer programming for the Halo game or something like that. And I thought, okay, you know, here's a guy, because I do a lot of video game work, here's a guy who understands what it is to make a video game. And he's been volunteering as part of this group. He put in there, he attended the, I don't know, it was Halo, whatever, it's one of these Unreal Engine conventions in Texas or something. So he showed me that he had gone out of his way to kind of get into the business. In Providence, there are all kinds of studios, filmmakers, video game people. They have a very strong tax subsidy program in Rhode Island, as they do in Massachusetts, as they do in Connecticut. Call up the office that does this and says, I'm really interested in understanding, you know, helping out with this tax thing. I'm a law student. Can I come in for a couple of afternoons and you can give me anything you want to do and I'll do it, okay? And you got on your resume that you've worked with the Massachusetts office of, you know, whatever it is, or the Rhode Island office of such and such. If there's anybody you got that needs any help, I'm not a practicing lawyer, I don't want to pretend that I am, but I can, you know, organize, think, do something. Put 2 or 3 of those things on your resume, and all of a sudden, when you're applying, it's completely different. And you don't have to have a 6-month summer job or whatever it is. There's the Game Developers Conference that has conferences all over the place. And it's not expensive to go to these things if you write them and say, I'm a law student, I'm interested. There's the GDC Europe, there's the GDC San Francisco, there's the GDC Online in Austin, and they're sprouting up everywhere. So visit a couple of those things. Get to, you know, show that you can understand a little bit about the business. I don't know what they have for Entertainment Law Society here, but maybe there's others that are in, you know, that you can do a joint program with groups from Harvard or Yale or Suffolk or wherever else there would be people that are interested. And maybe you can, you know, head up the Entertainment Law Society here at UMass Dartmouth, and you can meet with your compatriots elsewhere and, you know, sort of begin to have a little bit of a network. I'm not sure. I think that's probably all I should say in my time. If you want to.
Feel free to share other insights and thoughts, and then you can talk.
Well, let me, if you want. I don't know how much you know what the format is, or okay. So let's talk a little bit about you know, some of the specifics. And you know, in terms of I mentioned that you know, my working with Belushi. I had somebody call me a couple of days ago who is doing a film at Stonehill College in Easton, based on, is going to be a documentary film following their women's lacrosse team for a season. And I said, oh, my daughter played lacrosse at Pittsburgh Pomona. She said, I was the coach there, you know, she talked. She needs releases drawn up with the school. She needs releases drawn up with the students. She needs to understand what she can put in the film and how she can do it. She's got to deal with her financiers, etc. So I said to her, you know, yes, we can help you, but we tend to generally do much more bigger budget commercial kinds of things. Maybe you can find some law student somewhere that will help, that would be interested in doing this and would give you a hand. You said I used to be do some filmmaking. I was a documentary filmmaker and filmmaker in residence at Tufts College 40 years ago. So, and now, you know, I will get executive producer credit on a number of projects that my clients will give me that honor of that, but I have nothing to do with anything creative. In fact, you know, my son Dan, you know, laughs I hardly go to the movies. I don't play video games. If I've been executive producer of 500 half-hour TV shows, I've never watched one. I'm totally uninterested in comic books, toys, any of those things. I love the work that I do, and I love the clients that I represent all around the world, and I love the feeling of helping them, run their business. And that's, I guess, the second part. I mentioned earlier there's two parts of entertainment law. One is understanding the business and doing the deals around the business. The second is acting as a general counsel to your clients, basically. That involves employment issues, litigations when they get sued, their property being stolen, closing deals with banks for them, dealing the issues that arise between management of a company, the directors of the company, and the owners of the company. All of those things that are what I would call the general practice of law. And I serve as outside general counsel for, dare I say, 15, 20 different, nice companies around the world in which I'm their general lawyer, whether it's Paradox Interactive in Stockholm, or Mirage Studios in Northampton, or Paradox Entertainment in Beverly Hills. I'm the person that whenever there's a problem that involves anything legal or business or structural, they call me, and then I'll figure out who's going to handle it and get it done. And to do that, you have to have that kind of broad background in being a lawyer, which is why my 4 years in New York as a litigator and my 7 years in Northampton, where I did murder trials, med mal cases, divorces, real estate transactions, Social Security entitlement cases, anything that was interesting. People say, what kind of cases do you like? Something that's really interesting with a really good, tough lawyer who thinks he or she isn't going to beat on the other side. That, anything, doesn't matter. And I used to love that stuff. But you can only do so much in one lifetime, in 1 week or 1 day or whatever it is. So as you develop your careers, more and more things you have to say, I can't do both. I can't get married to 2 women. I can't. You have to make a decision and move on. And in the law practice, that generally involves kind of narrowing what you're doing and saying, oh, that would have been really to another real challenge, or I couldn't take on another. I remember when I kind of came to this was in the early 90s. I was appointed to represent the head of the Latin Kings in Holyoke, who was accused of having killed somebody. And I took the case and I went down and met with this guy who was kind of an arrogant person. And I came back and told Peter Laird, who was the co-creator of the Turtles, I've taken on this case, it's going to take a lot of my time, it's going to be a long trial, And Peter said, Fred, we can't, how can we run our business without you? You can't, how can you do that? And I thought about it. I said, here I'm representing this guy who's accused of murder. I'm getting $55 an hour from the state. And here I have this chance to make $250 an hour and, do this other stuff, and I can't do them both. And I ended up saying, I'm not going to do any more criminal defense work. I'm going to stick with this other stuff. And Jim and I were talking earlier. It says that I'm an adjunct professor at Western New England Law School. Well, in 1980, 81, 82, that was true. But I haven't done anything there since, because I just found, much as I love to talk to groups like you, or I do lectures all over the world, which is how I get my business from everywhere, there's no way that I could both teach and do at the same time. Just can't happen. I think that there's another way into the entertainment business, which is interesting, and that is that, first of all, University of Massachusetts has a very good name outside of wherever in the United States, and constantly surprised when I go out to California, where I spend at least 4 weeks a year, how many people there are that I meet that went to Tufts, where I went to, the sort of a Tufts Mafia where I went to college, or how many people are lawyers that went to BU or here or whatever it is. Doesn't matter where you go to law school. If you're not planning, if what you want to do is get a job in-house, which Jim can talk about more, the fact that you're a lawyer, you graduated from law school, can get you in the door. But I've had a couple of young people that have called me over the years, and I'm thinking of one recently who's the boyfriend of one of my clients' daughters. He was a lawyer in a litigation firm in New York for 5 or 6 years. He said, oh, I hate it, I'd love to get into entertainment law. How can I do that? I said, you know what? With your credentials as a lawyer, you'll be able to get any job you want that's advertised in the business part of it. Just take a job and do it for 6 months or so, and you'll be amazed at all the people you meet, and the opportunity will work itself out. So 3 or 4 months later, I call a woman with whom I do a lot of business at William Morris Endeavor, who's probably the top theatrical agent in the world, putting together musicals and stuff like that. And somebody answers the phone and says, Fred, this is Jim, so-and-so. Jim, what are you doing there? I took your advice. I'm now Susan Weaving's assistant. 3 or 4 months later, I see him and his girlfriend. He's now the vice president of production at a really good film company in New York. How did that happen? Well, I went and worked for 6 months as an agent, as the assistant to the agent. I met everybody, and somebody had a job opening, and I said, I'm interested, and they looked at my resume, and I got the job. I love it. So, there's you have to dial back and be willing to take any kind of job in the industry. But as a law graduate, you will get those jobs ahead of everybody else if you've got some demonstrated interest or in the particular profession of business. So for example, there are film festivals. Everybody has film festivals these days. Northampton has the Jewish one, the gay and lesbian one, the Northampton Film Festival. Cambridge has them, Providence has them. So find one of these film festivals and offer to be an assistant to the person running the film festival, and spend one cycle going through a film festival. Don't need to get paid, don't need to put in a whole lot of time. You can do it locally. I don't know if there's one in New Bedford or whatever, but now on your resume, you've been involved in running a film festival, okay? So you have a demonstrated interest in film. And if anybody in the film industry is hiring somebody, you say, I went to law school, I'm really interested in law, I worked for 2 or 3 years as this kind of a lawyer, whatever it is, and I've been involved with volunteer lawyers of the arts, and I've been to this, and I've seen that, and whatever, and I really want to get into films now, I'm willing to come in at any level. Come in, do the job, and it's amazing how quickly life opens up opportunities, and you just have to have the guts to grab them. Boston has a great video game industry. I mentioned this post-mortem that meets on one Wednesday a month in Waltham, and they have a talk each month. And you should get on there, just look up Google for post-mortem. You get on their list and you'll see, who's giving what talks. But there's a tremendous number of video game studios in the Boston and Providence area. I think Kurt Schilling, the pitcher from Boston, has moved his business down to Providence. I bet any of them would be happy to have a law student say, you got to have something you need some help with. I'd love to get my foot in the door. I'm really interested in video games, blah, blah, blah. Let me come in and you can throw me in the direction of your your accountant or your CFO. I'll do whatever needs to be done. And for free, just for an opportunity to work in the industry for a little while I'm in law school. I can give you 3 hours every week or something like that. You'd be amazed. People say, well, okay. I mean, it's one thing if somebody says to me, can I be your intern for a summer? That's a lot of responsibility to take on somebody and say, I'm going to train them and commit to them. So, no. But if somebody were to say to me, I want to know if I can come in for a week during such and such a vacation and just help you for 6 or 7 or 8 hours a day, and that's all I'm asking to do, everybody would say, okay to something like that. And now you've got that experience that shows you're demonstrated and interested in that field. I don't think you're going to find very many private law firms in this area that are going to be hiring entertainment lawyers. But I think if you get your accreditation here, which we're all hoping you will, you'd be, with the UMass Law School degree, you'd be in good shape to go elsewhere and take an entry-level job anywhere in the entertainment business, and that can be Texas, it could be California. Mostly California is where most people end up going. It's a lifestyle you have to decide you want. I personally need elbow room nature around me, and I just couldn't live out there. As much as I love going out there, I love the people out there, but that's why I've chosen to live where I live. You want to get any job you can, get in the door, put in your first couple of years, 2-3 years, and become good at what you do. Jim is gone. I don't know if I should take a couple of questions now, or if there's anything, I could talk for. I could just keep going, pick a topic like the licensing. I can talk about licensing until Jim comes back, because licensing is something that is related to the entertainment world, but it's not just in the entertainment world. Every license, and by licensing, what I mean is, anybody have any designer, anything on? You can see a lot of UMass things, but. It can be clothes. The Red Sox. Okay. He's got a shirt on that says the Red Sox on it. Okay. Well, somebody paid the Red Sox for the right to put Red Sox on their shirt. You take a blue T-shirt like that and you sell it. It's going to be $8. You put the Red Sox on it. It's going to be $25. Okay. So the business of licensing is the business of figuring out between the right holder and the licensee, what do you have to pay for the license to be able to use the emblem, the logo, the trademark, the character, whatever it is, in a movie, a film, on a piece of clothing, in a toy line, on a hot dog, whatever it is. A couple of basic things to know, and then I'm going to let Jim get his fair share here. Every license deal, the essence of it is the right granted is to use something that the licensor has. There's an indemnification that the licensor gives and a representation and warranty that, yes, I own the Tommy Hilfiger trademark. I'm giving it to you exclusively or not. That is negotiated. There's an advance against a royalty. There's a guarantee, if the license is 3 years, there's a guarantee that the amount paid over that 3 years, let's say the advance is $10,000, the guarantee is $30,000. There's a royalty rate, 8%, 10%, 7%, 14%. A royalty rate of what? So there's a definition of net proceeds, very, very important. You can have 20% of something. Well, we give 20%, but it's 20% with every conceivable possible deduction that you could possibly arrive at. Could be worth a lot less than 5% of 100% with no deductions. There's approval rights with trademarks. If you don't approve, if they put out something that's not approved, you can take it away. All of these are the essence of the licensing contract. There's a licensing show every year. There's a licensing agency called Lima, L-I-M-A. There's a licensing show every year that's in Las Vegas. They actually offer a 2 or 3 day course at what they call the Licensing University. If you want to go out to Las Vegas next June after school's over, or the following June, you go out there, you take this licensing course. I don't know how much it costs, but it's not like tuition here. It's $500 or something like that. And you get a certificate in licensing, okay? And you get to meet a gazillion people, okay? And Lima used to be in New York, and they have cocktail parties in New York and whatever. So you connect with Lima, and you say, I'm really interested in licensing, and I'm going to be down for the toy fair. Can I come and meet with you, whatever it is. You find your way into that business. Some of these things that you can transfer them all over across the entertainment industry. Jim, I'm going to hand off to you now, and the question will be later on.
My career is a little bit different. I'm from New Bedford, and I went to law school, and I remember my last year of law school, all throughout law school, I was telling people I wanted to be in the entertainment business. They said, can you sing, can you dance, can you write? No. What do you want to do? I want to work at a record company. I want to work at a film company. And they all wanted to go to Wall Street, and I talked to professors that just talked to me like I wanted a career in toxic waste or something. So, even my friends were like that. I clerked on Wall Street for one summer, absolutely hated it. It was the boringest summer of my life. And the year after that, I was interviewing, and I realized that growing up in New Bedford, going to school in Boston, law school in Boston, I thought if I don't get out now, I never will. So I looked at the schedule, and there was a couple of LA firms interviewing. One was Logan Lowe, which was a major entertainment firm. I interviewed with them, and got an offer, went to the West Coast, and ended up in their corporate department. I thought I was going to be in the entertainment department. In the corporate department, supporting the entertainment lawyers. And in my first month there, I was doing work for John Wayne and Doris Day and various film companies. And it was pretty boring stuff, and I realized that entertainment law could be boring too. I did that for a couple of years, and then I went over to, I called the Harvard Placement Office and asked, I said, look, get me out of here. And they said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to get into the entertainment industry. And they said, well, if you really want to do that, you know, it's like, again, toxic waste. We have an alumnus who works at Universal Studios as a producer. This goes back to what Fred's saying about connections. And I called this man up, and he arranged for interviews at Universal, and within a month I was working at Universal Studios. And when I was there, this is back in the dark ages, talk about photocopies. And the contracts at Universal Studios, they had form contracts. And then with some of the licensing and film production we did, we had a master agreement. It was all cut and paste. Okay, so the master agreement was about this thick, because every time you wanted to change something, you had your secretary, there were secretaries back then, type up a new paragraph, and then she would tape it onto the document and photocopy. There was no word processing, okay? So your master agreement got bigger and bigger and bigger by the years. And, but negotiating deals was different because you would send it out, there would be some downtime between the time you had to respond to another lawyer. You could send out something and you needed to work on something else for a while. It's not like an email where you send something out and 2 hours later somebody gives you comments on something. You know, it's a whole different world. It's a whole different world. So I'm a real dinosaur. So I was at the Universal Studios, and up in the division that did investment, small business investment company. We were financing entrepreneurs in the entertainment industry. One of the companies was Lou Wasserman, the president of Universal, called me and said, I want to do film theaters in the minority community, you know, because we don't have any, because they just haven't worked there. So I put together a proposal for the Baldwin Hills Entertainment Complex, put together a business plan for that, and we developed the first black-owned movie theater in America. That business proposal was later evolved into the Mansion Johnson Theaters. That one does. I worked for we developed a recording studio with some of the former Motown people, and because of that, I met a lot of the Motown people. Through them, I met Motown 25, Candy Shop Motown 25, backstage with the Temptations and the Four Tops, escorted the Supremes in. So this is why I went to law school. So that was all fun. And then I came back. I was in LA all those years, thinking that this is where I had to practice law. Came back home to New Bedford for a vacation, stopped in New York, and one of my condescending law school friends who had once told me about toxic waste was now a senior lawyer at HBO. So this is the evolution. All my friends are going to be corporate lawyers. They sneered at me when I wanted to be an entertainment lawyer. But 5 years after I started, they all ended up at Warner Brothers, HBO. They're all dealing with their own form of toxic waste. So he was a senior lawyer at HBO. And he said, why don't you once you get out of LA, do something more respectable, come back to New York. And so I met a headhunter, and it's respectable to New York. So I met a headhunter the next day. Within 24 hours, I was the new general counsel for CBS Fox Video, which at the time was the largest home video company in the world. Now this is back before DVDs. This is when people didn't know. Remember, this is back when when there was beta, VHS, and there was the lawsuits. This is back when, as a lawyer, what you had to do is come up with new forms. You had to anticipate the future, okay? There were movie contracts and there were music contracts. The video incorporated both, okay? So working with the CBS lawyers and the Fox lawyers, I had to come up with new forms that became the template for the industry for video production, video licensing. I stayed for a whole bunch of years, worked on deals for Return of the Jedi, Star Wars. Probably one of the more interesting negotiations was the relicensing of The Sound of Music. That's when I really got a lesson in the various elements that make up a movie, okay? We reached a stalemate because we had the owner of the book, then you have Rodgers and Hammerstein, the owners of the music, and then you have 20th Century Fox, the owners of the film, and everybody realized that if we don't come to terms, there's nothing we can do here because 20th Century Fox, even though they were saying they would just release The Sound of Music with new songs, they were saying that. They knew they couldn't do that, and the songwriters knew that they couldn't shoot a new Julie Andrews movie around it. So it was interesting. So being in the middle of that and negotiating some of it all came down to royalties and deductions, and, all that really horrendous financial stuff. Negotiating all of that was a lesson. After that, CBS Fox, we lived through all the consolidations in the entertainment industry. As a lawyer, in-house lawyer, it's interesting to watch and be part of the evolution of the industry. When I got to CBS Fox, Fox was a movie company, and CBS was a network that had a record company. And over those years, everybody started doing everything else. When I got into the business, there were rules that said that the studios could not own interest in networks, and the networks couldn't own interest in studios. And then Fox came up and everything changed. So everybody started buying everybody else. So all the players started moving around. So over those 7, 8 years, 9 years, at CBS Fox, it was amazing. The industry was so different when I left there than it was in the beginning. But it was exciting to live through that period and watching the change in the business, trying to anticipate what the next thing was going to be. Rewind a little bit. At Universal, one of the issues when movies went to video, we had all kinds of clearance issues about music, because music was cleared for the film, and it was cleared for TV, but it wasn't necessarily cleared for video. So if you go back to a lot of the movies back then, back in 1979, you'll see that there were different versions of movies like American Werewolf in London. For the video, there were different soundtracks, depending on which one you look at. Because Universal couldn't reach deals with some of the music licenses, they substituted music on their record number. And all the fans complained that the film they were seeing on video was not the same film they had seen in the theater. With all kinds of music licenses. That's when there were great lawsuits like Cinderella suing Disney for the use of Snow White. The woman who voiced Snow White in the movie didn't want to allow her music to be used in the video. A lot of exciting things. As a lawyer, you're the one on the 8 ball trying to anticipate this stuff. Another interesting one I worked on at Fox, I'll come back to this stuff about. Three Faces of Eve. Fox wanted to remake everybody know the film, Three Faces of Eve? About a woman with multiple personalities? Okay, it's a woman with multiple personalities, it's a drama. Fox wanted to remake it as a comedy. It's a true story based on a woman's life story, okay? So the problem was they signed Lily Tomlin to make a new movies and a comedy based on Three Faces of Eve and Five Faces of Eve. So the family sued, the estate of this woman sued, saying that Fox did not have the rights to make a remake. And Fox actually lost the lawsuit. Why did they lose the lawsuit? It's because the lawyers went back to the original agreements and found out that when Fox obtained rights from this woman, they didn't have her sign as herself. She signed as all 3 personalities. Okay? She signed as all 3 personalities, and they were doing other personalities. Other personalities had not signed away their rights. Okay? So Fox lost. Now, if you were the lawyer back then doing this deal, could you anticipate that, indulging this woman and allowing her to sign the agreement 3 different ways. Now that's just what you're doing, indulging them. You're thinking like, how is this ever going to come back to bite me in the ass? But it did. Fast forward, I'm at post-CBS Fox representing New Line Cinema on a licensing deal for Teenage Ninja Turtles. Ben Zinkin, yes. And that's where we intersect. That was interesting. After that, I was practicing with a friend of mine in New York, and along the way, I picked up some of the Motown clients that I represented Mary Wilson from the Siblings for 22 years, and also representing the estate of Florence Ballard, and some other Motown producers along the way, and along the way, I met a filmmaker named Rachel Lyon. Between the time I met her and the time when our careers intersected again, she's done 51 movies, and we ended up doing a documentary together, that's Race to Execution, which I did with her a couple of years ago. Anyway, so I went from private practice to, I was approached to be the new general counsel for A&E TV. That didn't work out. Came out as number 2 candidate. But in the process, somebody who had interviewed me said, I think we'd like to have you at Reader's Digest. And I thought, I'll never work at Reader's Digest. Why would I didn't read the magazine? But I interviewed Reader's Digest and ended up being the chief intellectual property lawyer. And it was an interesting experience to be with people who were like basically in the dark ages. And it was the magazine. I didn't know what they did. They published the magazine, they published books, they had a record company. And all of a sudden I was multimedia again, and they're trying to reinvent the company. So again, it's like, how do you anticipate the future? Reinvent the company. So when I was looking at acquisition agreements, before me, when Reader's Digest acquired a title, it was just to sell it in direct marketing. But when I was there, the new mandate was to get all rights in all media. Okay, whole new model for the company. And then I'm put in the middle of negotiations when I'm told to go there and get rights in all media, but I can't tell you if we can make money in all the media. So why should somebody give me the rights in that media if I'm not going to exploit it? Okay? Most interesting negotiation, I'm going to be all anecdotes. The most interesting negotiation for that one was with Frank Sinatra. This is about 8 months before he passed away. That's relevant. Reader's Digest, before they would acquire a product, test it for 2 or 3 years. Okay, what they do is test marketing. They put together sample products, mail it to people, see how many orders can come in. That way, when they finally put something in the marketplace, they know how much it's going to sell. Okay, so I was sent in to the lawyer of an ailing Frank Sinatra to try to acquire his music catalog for Reader's Digest. What we're going to do is, Frank Sinatra had recorded for 4 different record companies over the course of his career. So we're going to license all of his records from all the companies that put them together for the first time. Great project, right? So it looked like we had a deal until I said, we do, as talking to his attorney, he said, Reader's Digest, we test market. I said, how long does that take? I said, 3 years. Said, you don't have that long. So how long do I have? Very indelicate, the man is dying. He said, you don't have that long. I said, 2 years. They're trying to guess, how do I, they go back to the client, they're insisting they need at least 2 years to test this product. I'm trying to find out how much time does this man have. And it was really, this is like another skill they don't teach in law school. How do you finesse that? It's like, I can't ask him, when is he going to die? How long does he have to live? But I basically did that. And I found out we could not cut a deal for that one. But those are the kind of situations you put in. Okay, Reader's Digest, but it was there a couple of years, then they decided to retrench. I ended up back in private practice again, working with a friend of mine who was the former general counsel in line. And around that time, I started teaching in New York. So I've been teaching entertainment law, but when I was teaching in New York, I was teaching for entrepreneurs in the MBA program, which means I did meet new clients that way. But they have an MBA program at Metropolitan College in New York where everybody there is doing something in the entertainment business. This person over here is writing an online magazine, this one's a record producer, this one wants to be a manager, and most creative bunch of people who've been really interesting. And I met some clients out of that. I'm still in contact with a lot of people there. Some of them have produced films, produced TV shows. on that. And also, while I was practicing law there, I became outside counsel for Caucus versus Network. If you see a TV show where there's somebody with a duck on his head, or somebody killing fish, or it's probably something I did. All those fly fish and monster fish, killer monster fish, killer monster fly fish. I did all those shows. I'm like Fred, I've never seen any one of them. I've never seen any one of them. So I did a lot of those for, I guess that's about 10 years too, for Versus. Along the same time, I started working with Miramax, and which evolved into the Weinstein Company, and one of the few outside lawyers. I review chain of title for them. So I've done 88 movies in the past 10 years. Some of the movies, the chain of title, reviewing all the documentation, everything that Fred walked you through, the rights acquisition, or the distribution agreement, connect all the dots. And the reason why I get that work is because the lawyers in-house find it demeaning. It's not something they find intellectually challenging, but I say they don't understand, they can't connect the dots. But why do I take that work? I take that work because I'm in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And when I get phone calls from people in New Bedford, Massachusetts, they call me up and say, I'm getting a divorce. I tell them I don't do that. Well, I want to sell my house. I don't do that. Okay? My son was just arrested. I don't do that. And people say to me in New Bedford, what do you do? This is all I know how to do. I know how to practice entertainment law. I've been in every aspect of the industry. I've been in music, I've been in publishing, I've been in film, I've been in TV. It's expertise. This why, this date. I can't do anything else, okay? I haven't taught here for a little while. In fact, it's probably the first time that there's a graduating class where there was not an entertainment course in the 3 years that you were here. So, well, I was thinking of next semester coming back. How many of you want to take entertainment law next semester? Oh, that sounds good. All right. Basically, he walks you through the course. He walks you through the course. It starts with I like to look at it as applied intellectual property law. It's very helpful if you take intellectual property law before you start here. When I was in law school, all they offered was copyright. There was no entertainment law. It was just copyright. That's it. It helps if you have that. We start with a fundamental understanding of trademarks, copyrights, and patents. I don't know patents very well. And then it's rights of publicity, rights of privacy, licensing. And then we get into some of the cases of some of the really interesting things like here's Johnny Toilets. They're fun cases to read, which is like oxymoron law school. Well, they're fun cases to read. What I like to do in the course too, I'll sell the course a little bit. I challenge my students every week to find something in the news. What's in the news? We start each class with what's in the news. And I've been very fortunate over the past couple of years because when I was teaching in New York, what's in the news? Elian Gonzalez wanted to go, they're trying to get him back to Cuba. One of the things in the final was develop a project based on the life of Elian Gonzalez. And some people want to do as a movie, some want to do as a documentary, somebody want to do the ballad of Elian Gonzalez. There were a whole bunch of interesting things. And then when I was teaching here, I had the great fortune to have Michael Jackson pass away. So that the class, there were wonderful articles about Michael Jackson, use of his likeness, and wonderful, great material for an entertainment law course. So I'm sure that something will happen in the next 6 months for an entertainment law course to facilitate your learning of entertainment law. Okay, so now I'm in private practice. I am kind of in private practice, but it's a very unorthodox career path. I am now the Vice President of Programming and Education at New Bedford Williams. Go figure. Okay? So I'm doing things like the Moby Dick Marathon. I did 46 programs in the last 9 months. I had to run out because I have a program next week, a genealogy program. So that's what I'm doing. I do that for 2/3 of my life, and I do film licensing and for another 2/3 of my life. And the film production's coming from New Bedford. I've been production lawyer for a couple of them, so that's another third. So it's a lot of different things coming together, but it's a lot of fun. but I am surviving in New Bedford practicing entertainment law, and I maintain relationships with all my students. They call me up, Mr. Lewis, look at this. If I do the course next semester, I will have the opportunity to offer internships. So I could use an intern down the road using working on advancing programs. So think
Someone
about
should
it.
take him up on that.
So that's it. That's basically, I rambled. I thought, since you got such a great background in the entertainment business, that anecdotal was the best way to go. So thank you.
Wow, very, very, very tough acts for me to follow, but I'll do what I
Can
can.
I just want to comment on two things he said that struck home. One was you're constantly shifting.
Yes.
And what starting with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that got me into the comic book world. And I was speaking at the San Diego Comic-Con for several years in a row, and I ended up representing every single comic book company that was going on TV on Fox and CBS and whatever. And then this one guy comes up to me in the 1991 Comic-Con, and he says, my name is David Perry, and I've just started a video game studio, and I've got a property that I wonder if you could help me bring to TV and toys like you do for comic books. And this was something called Earthworm Jim, before any of you were born. But, so I brought Earthworm Jim to Universal and to Playmates, and we did a TV series and a toy line and whatever it was. And in the course of that, working with David, I got to see the video game world, and then I was invited to speak at the Electronic Entertainment Expo, the E3. And I went there, and I immediately said, I think this business has more of a future than comic books. And because I hate to have to fly across the country or whatever, I kind of try and limit the number of conventions I go to. So I dropped the Comic-Con and started going to E3, which led me into the Game Developers Conference, where I go and speak all the time, either in San Francisco or in Cologne. And the video game world is filled with great opportunities and lots of money to be made and lots of need for lawyers. And the comic book world, much less so. So that was just one, what you said there. And the other thing was chain of title. I'll probably use you for some chain of title work, because but oh, this is boring. Well, it can be extremely interesting. So I just want to tell you one chain of title, which is Robert E. Howard was the most prolific pulp fiction writer in the late 20s and early 30s. And this was before television, there was radio, but it was these pulp fiction magazines that would come out each month that people would run to get, and they would have serials of Tarzan or whatever the stories were that they were doing. And Robert E. Howard would write 6, 7, or 8 serials at a time for different characters in different publications, including Weird Tales. And his characters were Conan the Barbarian and Cull of Atlantis and Sailor Steve Costigan and many others. He killed himself in 1936 at the age of 36. And within the last 10 years, one of my clients acquired the rights to all of his characters, which created an incredibly interesting issue as to what was in the public domain and what wasn't. Because in the pre-1977 Act, you had a copyright for a certain number of years. You had to follow the formalities to renew it. If you didn't, it went into the public domain. And so my clients, I spent several years, a good part of the time in my office. And in fact, Dan worked for this company in Beverly Hills, which was to try and figure out which of these multiple characters and storylines could we establish enough of a chain of title to so that we could license them or develop them. We also got trademarks in a lot of the names, so if we didn't have copyright, we got trademark or we bolstered it. And recently, I've been working on a chain of title issue for a film out of Sweden where it dates back to a famous world champion boxer in the 50s and his girlfriend, ex-wife, who was a famous blonde, buxom pop singer at the time. And he's gone, she's still alive. She's now living in Paris, she's in her 90. She doesn't want to have anything, any cooperation, whatever. And we've got a wonderful team of people putting together this film about their lives. But the question is, what can we do? Because we don't have any releases. There are rights of publicity in some places that die when that are over when you die. In other places there aren't. Here's a living person, but Lumber's lives in Sweden, she lives in France with it. So the general rule of thumb is you have to see what's come out in public sources and make sure that every line of your script is derived from something that's in public. So we have to, and if it's not, we have to rewrite it, redo it, whatever it is. So while you may think chain of title is boring, it's like anything else. And in fact, if you didn't all find some pleasure in sitting in a library and thinking and working on words and following things, you wouldn't be in law school. Because so when you get into almost anything and you're dealing with the gnarliness of it and the difficulty of it, and you have to be creative and look at a different way, and if that doesn't work, try this and that, whatever, it can be very interesting. And so when you said a chain of title, and you said, I did 80 chapters, I said, that's so interesting, because some of them are very simple. I created a script, and it came out of nowhere. Nobody else has ever done anything. You're the first company that ever saw it. I'll give you the rights to it. Yeah, that's fine, done. Lassie, okay. So I just looked at H.R. Lovecraft, which is, same kind of thing. Some in the public domain, some isn't. So these are all really fascinating things, I think. Anyway, I just wanted to say those two things you brought up.
I have a couple of questions I wanted to ask, and then I imagine some people who are listening have some questions of their own they want to ask. There are a lot of things that you all talked about in terms of intellectual property, contracts, a little bit of litigation. Something that I hear a lot about with entertainment law has to do with labor, employment, that kind of negotiations. Any thoughts on where that plays into either of your practices?
I do a lot of that, okay? And first of all, I think I did mention the guilds, okay? So when you're doing film or television work, if it's network or if it's major studio work, or if it's non-major studio, small production entity, but they're using major talent, then you have to get familiar with the Writers Guild, the Directors Guild, the Dramatists Guild, the Screen Actors Guild. And these are essentially unions that operate on behalf of their members. You have to achieve a certain level of proficiency in order to be admitted. They have very strict rules, and they have standard contracts which you have to use with a few different deviations. And if there's a problem, you go to arbitration in front of them. Okay, so it's a little bit stacked. But what's interesting is a lot of times you'll want to do a film with a Directors Guild director, but if you sign on to the guild agreement, you have to promise that everything you do will use only guild member directors or writers or whatever. And that's not really feasible, especially if you're doing a lot of stuff internationally. And by the same token, the director or the actor who's a member of the guild, they have to commit that they will only work with entities that are signed up to the guild. So what ends up happening is you form a sister company, and that company joins all the guilds. And that company is the one that does all the negotiating and deal making and signing that way. Okay? Now, the most important thing that maybe in terms of employment status is ownership of intellectual property that's created by people working for, so which is sort of work for hire, and I think that you'll see a lot if you get into the industry of non-disclosure agreements and submission agreements and work for hire agreements and all of those kinds of things. But that's where you can have some gray areas. And if you are working on a project and you're a company, you need to have all of your employees signed up with work for hire agreements and confidentiality agreements, etc., to make sure that you own what they did. And that becomes I just had a major case a couple of years ago based in Monte Carlo, which uses French law, where my client engaged two people to create a musical and do all sorts of things for his film and other things that he's working on. And this is before I got involved representing him, and he didn't have a written contract with them. They did all this work. He paid them for the work, hundreds of thousands of dollars. They had a falling out, and they said, well, you don't own it, we own it. You know, in many respects, they were right. You know, that's employment law to an extent. Now, you also have things that come up like, I want to let this person go, and do I need what kind of notice and that sort of stuff, which is you know, you get an employment lawyer. I had another case involving a client in which everybody ended up hating the CEO who worked there, and he came around and waved a pistol in the office and did a couple of other things, but he was very tight with several of the board members and the major shareholders. So I hired an independent employment lawyer to do a report as to whether that, you know, whether that person had broken laws or what was the jeopardy for the company. And then when that report came back, we fired the person, which was what I wanted to do anyway. But you need to know everything. If you're an it doesn't matter whether you're in the entertainment business or any other business. At some point, you need to understand everything from traffic to medical malpractice to criminal stuff to whatever. And you also need to know when to, you know, be, as I tend to be, insufferably self-confident and arrogant that I can do anything.
You also need to know what you don't know.
And when to say, I should refer that one out to somebody else. You know, and that's you know, so employment law, you know, touches everything, because if you think about all these projects that have 100 people or 200 people or 400 people working on them, or an extra shows up and is in a scene of a film or whatever it is, you better make sure you got something signed, so that you don't end up just before the film's coming out with somebody trying to seek an injunction.
So it's just like all other aspects of law, the details matter, you have to follow through, make sure you have yourself covered.
Different businesses have different rules. Like most of the cable TV networks are not signatories to any of the agreements. So occasionally they want to engage talent that is union talent. So you have to find some way around that. I mean, like specializing in circumventing the union rules. You know, so you find some way around that. But then occasionally I've done employment contracts for executives at film companies. And what's really interesting there is that some of them are really, really onerous when it takes like the issue of work for hire. And some of these companies say that every employee, if you're thinking an idea, if you come up with some kind of concept while you're sitting, it doesn't matter what your job function is, that idea belongs to the company. So think about it. It's like a lot of these companies attract creative young people who have ideas, but they'll take a job as an administrative assistant or as or in the mailroom or something, and they have these ideas, but the ideas have nothing to do with delivering mail or doing accounting or anything like that. And so the company exploits that. Okay? Exploits that because they never know when the next mail person's going to become Steven Spielberg. You know, so when you sign your employment contract or you sign your agreement or it's in the personal policy or something, it says any ideas generated from the property of the company. However, as you rise to the company, you have more leverage. Represented a senior accountant at New Line, and she likes to put on leather and play rock and roll on the weekends. So we carved out an exception there that if she writes an accounting book, it belongs to the company. But if she writes a rock and roll song, she just has to offer it to them, and they have to decline. They don't want the rock and roll anyway. So that's the extent that I deal with employment issues. But on the TV side, yeah, it's cable networks don't really be signatories. Because cable TV is, again, new media, semi-new media, the one that's newer than that, the internet, all kinds of issues going on with the guilds and who has jurisdiction and what, that sort of stuff. So right now, people are skirted.
I have one last question, and then I'm going to see who else has questions, but it has to do with merchandising, because I think we sort of talked around that and about it a little bit. The thing I'm thinking about is Lightning McQueen. I have a 3-year-old who loves Lightning McQueen, and he can eat Lightning McQueen mac and cheese and cereal and sleep in Lightning McQueen sheets and have a Lightning McQueen toy and the car and go to the movie and have coloring books and so on and so forth. And you could do that with any property, I guess, at this point. And I guess that seems like the way things are going. Is that a whole different area? Is it just the licensing, or is the merchandising a whole
That's
nother
very
segment?
much my area. I've been going to the licensing show for 25 years now, and you know, I probably have 25 clients in that industry. And it is a completely different industry, the merchandising licensing industry, which has to do with toys and T-shirts and sheets and food and other things. And there are agencies that are all around the world. Joe Straloria, Copyright Promotions Group, Beanstalk. Each of these agencies specializes in developing licensing programs for their clients. IMG, many does more sports stuff, and I've worked with them quite a bit. Many of these agencies, they will go out and they will conceive of a program, and they will pitch the program, and they will take a fee of usually 35%. Where the industry has changed dramatically in the last 15 years or so, as it used to be that you would make your deal with the toy company, and, you know, the agency and the T-shirt company, and then that's it. Now that you have these mass market retailers like Walmart and Target, Electronics Boutique, they control a huge amount of the market. You can make a toy line, but if you can't get it on the shelves at Walmart, forget about it. Okay? So very much now the licensing agencies have specialists who deal with particular retail chains. This is my clothing person, and she goes to Macy's and wherever else, you know, on a regular basis, and pitches them to either do a line of clothes or take in these clothes. We all go to Walmart, you know, I don't go, but I mean, you know, all the people in the licensing business, they go to Walmart and they sit down there in Arkansas and they wait and they pitch whatever it is that they can sell to them. And that's a new part of the industry. It's a very much separate part, but it's ancillary. If you go to the licensing show, there'll be Sony licensing and Disney licensing and Paramount licensing, you know, all of which are affiliated with, you know, the studios. And then there'll be the agents and who will be doing their own licensing, you know, across all levels. And a lot of people tend to think they can do their own licensing, their own deals, and keep it small, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. The trouble with studio licensing, and that's all, I can talk about licensing for a long time, but you know, the studio licensing plans are basically built around the feature films that come out. Starting a few months before the film, you begin to hear about the film. Okay? And then there's a big explosion, and then the way film business works, 4 weekends later, it's gone. Okay? And they may have a little bit for the home video 2 months later, 3 months later, but that's basically it. So then they're on to the next film. Depending on the market, the children's world, as you found with your kid, the important thing is television series. New episodes every year, staying on the market. And each time there's a new series done, before the episodes are done, the toy company and the licensing agent will sit down with the production entity, and they will figure out which vehicles, which characters, which settings, which costumes, which weapons are going to be in next year, 12 years from now, episodes. And then they will go back and they'll get all the products ready so they're exactly the same. Okay? And they'll work 12 or 18 months ahead of time to get a Burger King or a McDonald's deal. Those are great deals at $500,000 and a tremendous amount of promotion to have the Happy Meal, you know, using those characters. So that's a very much of a subset, you know. And I can actually say that my clients, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you know, dramatically changed that industry. When we did our first deal with CBS, they didn't ask for one nickel out of our licensing. Mm-hmm. And we got a $2,500 per episode fee for the right to make the Turtle shows. And we kept 100% of the merchandising and licensing. And in our second or third year, 65% of all the boys' toys sold in the world were Turtles toys. So and they got nothing. Now you want to put a show on Nickelodeon. If they give you 10% of the net, you know, you have to fight for it. Because that's where they know they make their money. In fact, we sold the Turtles to them for $60-something million a few years ago, and now they're going to introduce a new Turtle show. So anyway, that's about licensing.
Two comments on that. One of them was historical. One of them is, Reader's Digest, when we cut a deal with PBS to do programming. Unfortunately, we went in to negotiate with PBS right after they got burned by the producers of Barney. They did not take any merchandising rights in Barney, so merchandising rights were the most important thing to them. Merchandising rights were irrelevant for Reader's Digest because they weren't going to exploit them. But PBS had been burned on the electric company in Sesame Street. They got no income from any of that. So whenever you walked in the door at PBS, they were insisting that they get the majority of the merchandising rights. The other thing is I remember back when I was in LA, watching the evolution of Disney, because Disney used to be like the forgotten movie studio. They put out the occasional cartoon, they started doing Touchstone, but then the executives at Disney decided to look at the amusement parks, which were not doing well. And they went to the amusement parks and started looking at the rides saying, how can we merchandise these rides with film? This ride that was losing appeal called Pirates of the Caribbean. Okay, let's create a film product. Space Mountain, the Haunted Mansion, all of a sudden, even the Country Bear Jamboree, all these rides in Disneyland that were failing, all of a sudden are on their production schedule. You see the same evolution with Disney as they take their movies to Broadway and make musicals. But it's always telling their people to go back and reinvent this, find some other way to do it. And right at the heart of what they're doing are the lawyers.
Oh, that's a point I want to just do. Hasbro is near here.
Yes.
And I've done a lot of business with Hasbro, and they have recently focused very much on taking their own intellectual properties and developing them and putting them out through the hub, which has not worked. I know all the people in that division. That's a great place for you guys to go in Pawtucket, and look for an opportunity to. And if you want an introduction, send me an email or something.
Okay, you all heard that.
But Hasbro, they have a whole vault of IPs,
Yes.
and they're doing everything they can to figure out how to put them into amusement parks and films and television and whatever. And there's certainly a role for people who want to experience that, I think, to help them do that. So that's a great nearby opportunity. It hadn't occurred to me to do.
Well, it's all the movies that are coming out from the stuff we do, all the comic books and the video games. It's amazing to see all the video games go to the big screen right now. Between that and remakes, it's 90% of the movies they've made.
Unfortunately, that might be true.
So I imagine
Any
may have some questions. Can I take any questions? Unless you have left them all in awe.
I don't know. We're bored.
Well, I don't think so. Not one of them has moved. I have two other things I wanted to ask you about. One is, are either of you currently, or have you at all been involved with the ABA, their Forum on Entertainment and Sports Industries?
I have never been a member of the ABA. I'm ashamed to say.
I have been a member, but I've never attended it.
I've never done anything, or with the, I am a member of the Mass Bar Association. I've never gone to a single meeting or had anything to do with it. I have a couple of associates who are doing some of those things, but in my own connection, the lawyers, and I've made some very, very close friends that I've met in the business who are lawyers, from being on the other side of transactions or trying cases against each other, or whatever it is. Almost all my business comes from the people in the field, not from other lawyers. And the couple of times that I've tried to go to a convention of lawyers, I've been so bored that I've just not even been able to stay inside the door for 2 minutes. But I love to go to the video game convention, or the film convention, or the film festival, or the toy fair, and talk to that I find interesting. So so I give my talks to the talent and the executives in the field on topics that I think they might be interested in, and then they come back to me when they need work. I don't do anything personal.
I joined the ABA. I've been to some of the presentations in New York. Just wanted to mention, just an aside here. When I started, there was so few minority entertainment lawyers, and when you talk to people, and when making comments and defense of people, what people used to say all the time is, "I want a Jewish lawyer."
There you go.
I want a Jewish. That's what they used to say. I want a Jewish lawyer.
By the way, I represent a lot of Arab people.
I want
What do you think? They say, oh, I like Jewish lawyers.
I want someone who knows everybody on the other side, who's negotiating the other side. So lawyers of color did not have a chance. Universal did not hire, most of the students did not hire black lawyers back in 1979. I was the only one at Universal, and I was put in a division where it focused on minority projects. However, came to New York, and I'm general counsel, CBS Fox, and there's a formation of an organization called the Black Entertainment Sports Lawyers Association. Now that group has conventions now, and there are 400 lawyers in that group. And the change came with hip hop music. When the hip hop musicians came along, they said, "I want a black lawyer. Okay, I want a minority lawyer. I want a Latino lawyer." So that changed the whole landscape so that is an organization that I do belong to. I'm not going to their convention in Maui this year. But
it's unfortunate for you.
They're great for networking. But because if those things with the lawyers, listen to in-house lawyers, it's great.
There is a video game bar association I belong to. I'm actually active in that. And one of my associates is a woman that's involved in the women lawyers in video games or something like that. And so I do find those groups, which can be interesting.
The real niche groups.
Yeah, PLI gives good programs in New York, but I just have
social media.
Mm-hmm.
Social media, there are a lot of different professional groups online too.
Yeah.
CBS alumni, Fox alumni, entertainment lawyers, intellectual property lawyers, and I've actually gotten business from that.
There's a lot of, one of the handouts I have online, it's also in the Simplicity Document Library, also in my office, is about professional and bar associations. Some of these associations are bar associations, they're associations of lawyers, but others are more sort of legal oriented, and if it's in the niche field that you're looking at, then that's really a great way to network with people and get them through the door. All right, well, I don't want to overstay the welcome of our speakers. I do want to thank them both.